Hello, everyone. I'm Storm Team Chief Meteorologist Jim Teske. Welcome to this latest edition of Teske's Tidbits. We are now getting into the winter season, and for winter enthusiasts, especially skiers, snow and having reliable snow is very, very important. And now, more so than ever, it seems snowmaking is such a big part of that equation in terms of having perfect conditions out on the slopes. So tonight's episode is going to focus in on snowmaking, and we've brought in a couple people who are experts on this and can talk about snowmaking from Greek Peak. We're bringing in Jarrett DeLumbo. He's the assistant mountain manager, and also Aidan Wilbur. He's the vice president of operations. Want to thank both of you for being with us this evening.
Thank you for having us.
Now, the first question, really, I'm going to open it up to both of you. How do you get into snowmaking? Is it something that you just kind of, you go to work at a ski area and you learn on the job, or do you go out? Are there classes at universities or something, or other ski areas that you pick up the trade? I guess I'll open it to Aidan first.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a combination. Depends on who you are and how you got into the industry. For myself, I worked at Greek Peak before I was into snowmaking operations. I really saw a need for our ability to step up our snowmaking operations and how we could bring the current technology to make Greek Peak better and more prevalent with some of the bigger mountains out there in the country. And then as far as continuing education, we go to conferences year round. We talk with the snowmaking experts out there, the manufacturers, other resorts. Really, it's a pretty tight-knit community, and we bounce ideas off each other.
So in that sense, can you give us an example of how things have changed? I mean, we're going to get into the details of how you make snow and what's important, but yeah. I mean, can you get into the nitty-gritty a little bit in terms of, well, this is what we do now, and 10 years ago it was much different?
Yeah, I would say, two big key pieces that are different today than they were 10 years ago is, snowmaking, when it first came onto the scene in the 70s and the 80s at most ski resorts, everybody had portable fleets that they would move around the mountain because they didn't have a ton of snowmaking equipment. And some of the older snow guns that were used required a lot of compressed air, so you couldn't run as many. So they would move these fleets of snow guns around the mountain. Modern snowmaking they're all stationary, fixed on the side of trails. It's a lot less manpower to move them. And the key improvement that's really helped bring efficiency to the industry is automation. Over the last 10 to 15 years, there's been a huge push to automate these systems because we have smaller windows to make snow in. So it's important to get them up and running quickly so we can maximize production.
Okay. Well, let's take a step back. We kind of got ahead of ourselves here, I think, by that question that I gave you. But when it comes down to it, Aidan, it's basically snow and air is what's causing you to make snow. Talk about the science behind making man-made snow, artificial snow.
Yeah, it's a pretty similar process to what happens naturally. We just have to do it on a much smaller scale. So when you have a ton of moisture in the air, say at 25,000 feet, you'd know this better than I do. As those water molecules that are up in the air, they drop in temperature, they start to turn into mini ice crystals, and they fall to the earth as snow. We're doing that in a much smaller falling pattern, about 30 feet. We're trying to accomplish that. So what we do is we take very high pressure water, depending on where you are on the mountain. It could be anywhere from 300 to 500 PSI. And we pump that up the hill through our snow guns. And at the same time, we also send compressed air at about 100 PSI. And as this water and air meet in the snow gun, we try to break apart those water molecules into smaller pieces so they have a better probability of freezing before they get to the ground. There's really kind of three key components we look at if it's going to be a good time period to make snow in. One is the temperature. Obviously, it has to be below freezing, especially here in New York because we have such high relative humidity. That second component is the relative humidity. So the lower the humidity, the better probability of that water molecule freezing is. Essentially, what's happening on a real small scale as that water starts to evaporate, it cools the area around the water and it causes it to freeze before it can get to the ground. And kind of the third really important factor for us is how long is it going to be in those optimal snowmaking temperatures? If it's only going to be an hour or two, it's difficult for us to get everything up and running. We're really looking for windows that are prolonged cold periods for 8 hours or more, ideally multiple days that we can run.
So, what would be, the ideal, conditions in terms of humidity and temperature for you? What would be the sweet spot?
Where we are in New York, we typically see relative humidities 85 to 90, which is pretty high. Once we start to get into the 70s, maybe 65%, that's great. Essentially, the lower the humidity, the higher the temperature can be for us. We go by a metric called wet bulb, and that is a combination of the actual ambient temperature and the relative humidity. So let's say the temperature is 32 degrees Fahrenheit, and you have a relative humidity of 70%. That may make the wet bulb somewhere down around 26, 27 is really what minimum we need to make snow. Ideally, we like the outside ambient temperature to be probably about 15 degrees. If it gets much colder than that, it becomes kind of a logistical nightmare for the teams on the mountain to make sure that hoses aren't freezing as we're pumping water around.
Yeah. Is there ever a scenario where the air can be dry enough that you can make snow above 32 degrees?
Not in New York, but in Colorado, yes. Theoretically, it's possible to make snow at 42 degrees. Colorado has very low relative humidity, so they do have the ability to make snow above freezing. It's not often, but it can happen.
Yeah. Now, obviously, we haven't brought Jared in, but before we go to break, I want to bring Jared in to talk a little bit maybe about his, if you could talk a little bit about how you got into the snowmaking aspect of the business.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was in college, I was kind of looking for a job. Always grew up skiing, so I figured why not work at the local ski resort. Started off as a lift operator and was interested in the snowmaking, found a home in that department, and kind of just went off from there, fell in love with it.
Yeah, and you also go to conferences as well to learn the latest?
Yep.
What maybe you can touch upon this a little bit. We talked a little bit, obviously about how make snow. What's the difference between the man-made snow versus the real thing? How people notice the difference? Is it what do you see as the difference between the two types of snow?
Yeah, absolutely. So the man-made snow, you can clearly tell it's man-made snow. It's usually more of a harder packed surface. After a few warm-ups here and there to cold temps, it comes more of like an ice. And that's where we go out and groom it every night and try to put that roll the snow on top and put more of a fresh corduroy down to where with natural snow, it's usually a lot heavier and sticky. So you can kind of see the difference when you're riding that surface.
But I guess from an operation standpoint, there is an advantage. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the man-made snow holds up a little bit better than the real thing, correct?
Correct.
So that helps you kind of extend your season, right?
Yep. Yes, it does.
Okay, so that's a good thing as well. So we're gonna take a quick break here, and we're gonna come back and talk a little bit about how you guys approach covering a mountain, because it sounds like there has to be a game plan. So when we come back, the second part of this episode, we'll talk a little bit about that. So stay with us. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Storm Team Chief Meteorologist Jim Teske. We are back talking snowmaking with a couple of folks from Greek Peak. Aidan Wilbur and also Jarrett DeLumbo. And we're going to bring in Jarrett to talk specifically. We're recording this in November, so we're getting closer to the start of the ski season. And, obviously you want natural snow, but, the man-made snow gives you that opportunity to open up earlier. How do you approach, getting things ready with the man-made snow for the beginning of the season? I would imagine, obviously you're going to focus on certain parts of the area to get open first versus other areas, right?
Correct. So on a typical year, it always varies with our weather and what type of windows we have to get open. But for startup this year, we are going off of our top 3 trails off of our main lift. It is a green trail down, a blue trail, and a black diamond trail, as well as our beginner area off the base of the lift and our loading zone right by Visions and the base area.
So is that part of the strategy to try to open something top to bottom for people to get started?
Yep, that is the goal, to open a top to bottom and try to have a variety of different trails for our guests, different experience levels and skill levels. So,
and to do this, how many guns do you have? How many snow guns do you have?
It's a lot to count on property. Offhand, I don't have a specific number, but the past few nights we've been running around 150 guns, and that's a mix between air water guns and fan guns. So it's been busy every night. We start up and get those guns online with the short windows we've had.
So explain the difference between the guns and, the pros and cons of the guns and what they do.
Yeah, so a fan gun is the ones you see around most ski resorts in their base areas. They have a big barrel on them. Those actually have a fan motor that pushes the throw of the snow. And your air water guns are what we primarily use on most of our trails. You can see about 20 of them right down the side of a trail. And those have air and water hookups that use our infrastructure in ground. We pump water through our hydrants and air hydrants and different applications for different areas.
Okay. Now, I don't know who would address this first, whether it be Jared or Aidan, but take us through how you use a forecast. Now, you get a specific forecast from a private forecasting company. How do you use that weather information to make up your game plan for the upcoming day, the upcoming night?
Want to take that, Jared? You can.
Yeah. So we get a forecast and we keep our close eye on it throughout the day, a few days before and prior, stuff like that. But what we're really looking for is that good 8-hour window. Anything less than an 8-hour window, it's really not beneficial to us between startup time and getting the guns online. So we're looking at wind directions, what our humidity levels are, and going off to see what our wet bulb will be throughout the night.
Okay, so you ideally you like, you said what, 8 hours to make it worth?
8-hour snowmaking window is kind of what we look for.
Okay, and touch upon the weather that we've had. I know obviously we've had a little bit more rain. Is the dry weather that we had during the summer, is that going to have any impact on this upcoming season, or are you in good shape?
Our pond is full and the creeks are flowing, so we are in good shape on water this year. Last summer was a little bit scary. Before last season we started up, our creeks were dry. So we were kind of thinking of some backup plans, but this summer with what we got in the fall, I think we're ready to go.
Okay. And, we talk about the importance of snow and making snow in the beginning of the season to kind of get things going. How does your job change as you get into the mid-season and, later on into February? I would guess at some point you rely less and less on making snow.
Yeah, so last year was the first year in a while that we were able to wrap up snowmaking, one of the earliest we've ever done, which was the end of January. A lot plays into that with those snowmaking windows. If we have good temps throughout December and early January, we can pump a lot of water on the hill and make snow. Years past, we've pushed into February, gone after right to the end of February. So it really depends on what weather we get early on.
Do you try to stockpile snow on certain trails to save for later in the season?
Yep, some of the areas that we know are weaker areas that we tend to lose snow faster, we will build that base up a little bit more than other areas.
Okay. I'm going to bring Aiden back in because I want you to talk about the upgrades that you've made to snowmaking over the last couple of years. When did that start, and what was the scope of the expansion of the snowmaking?
Yeah, we actually just wrapped up a 5-year infrastructure upgrade. We got with ownership and senior management at Greek Peak, and we were really looking at, what trails do you want to try and guarantee by Christmas? So we kind of worked backwards from that. If we want to guarantee these trails, we know how much water it takes and what kind of infrastructure we're going to have to put out on the hill. That was a 5-year, multi-million-dollar project. We replaced a lot of old pipes that were in the ground that had been in there since the 60s and 70s. And we also put some on new terrain to add new terrain that the skiers want to see. We're actually getting ready to undertake another 5-year major upgrade. This was kind of year one of that, but next year we'll probably be putting out some pretty big announcements here on some of these upgrades that we're going to be making.
Oh, a little teaser there. Thank you for putting that in there. So at this point, as we go into the 2025-2026 season, what's the percentage of the mountain that's covered by snowmaking?
I would say that number is probably about 80%. Most of our main side of the mountain for our normal skiers that would know what I'm talking about with that, kind of in our main base area all the way out to Chair 4. I'd say most of that has snowmaking on it. There's probably 3 trails that don't. The biggest area that's lacking in snowmaking right now is what we call the east side. That's over by Chair 5. It kind of is on the back side of the mountain. And that's an area we're looking to go after in the next few years to really put some upgrades in over there.
So is it safe to say in that next 5-year program, you're going to be getting closer to 100%? Is that an ultimate goal to get to that point, or will you be doing more fine tuning with what you have right now?
I would say, our goal is 100% snowmaking of all non-gladed trails. And what a glade trail is where you're skiing through the trees. It's pretty difficult to make snow in there, but ownership and senior management here really would like to see all of our other trails have snowmaking on it. Can't promise that it's going to happen in the next 5 years, but we're always kind of looking at that.
That's the goal. And I mean, this probably goes without saying, but I mean, you can discuss a little bit about this with those, in particular, those 5 really lean winters. How important is snowmaking now to a modern ski area like yours?
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't survive without it. Kind of when I got involved in snowmaking was in 2015. I don't know if you remember that winter, but we actually didn't even open up till January. It was pretty devastating to all the ski areas in the Northeast, which is why we've really decided to hedge our bet, go all in on snowmaking to protect ourselves and make sure we could put out a quality product for our customers. To kind of put things in perspective, 2 years ago was an okay winter. We actually ran for 750 hours worth of snowmaking. If we hadn't done the upgrades that we did, we probably would have been upwards of 1,500 to 1,800 hours of snowmaking. So it allows us to get the mountain open faster so people can enjoy more terrain. And it's actually a pretty big cost savings for us, cutting out those hours out.
Yeah. Would you have any guess as to, how long your season would be without snowmaking? I mean, you wouldn't be able to open earlier in the winter, and you'd probably close earlier in the spring. But do you have a sense of what that means tangibly?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I don't even know if we could be open for a month straight in the winter. typically you get so many freeze-thaw cycles throughout the winter, and man-made snow natural snow will disappear within a day or two of the sun coming out. So for us to have continuous operation and never have a lapse, man-made is 100% necessary.
Yeah. So yeah, and like I said, the last this decade in particular has proven that to be the case. And we've been talking with Aidan Wilbur and Jarrett DeLumba from Greek Peak. I want to thank both of you for being here. I thank you for all you do to keep the mountains open. I'm hoping this year you won't have to do as much work, that you'll actually have some real snow to deal with, and you'll just be grooming, not so much making snow. So, guys, thank you for being with me this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Join News Channel 9 for A Christmas Wish and help us support the rescue mission. A movie with a mission this Sunday at noon on News Channel 9 and WSYR Plus.